So SIMGOT released a new headphone under $100, the EP5, and we're gonna see if it stacks up against the other headphones as well as the IEMS at around $100. Starting with the overall sound, this is an all-rounder with a sub-bass boost, and it's very close to Harman, but just imagine Harman but with a sub-bass boost. The impact and slam in the low end is very satisfying. It has that subwoofer kind of like bounciness to the sound. I do believe this does have a scoop somewhere in the low end, which gives that, subwoofer kind of feeling. Overall, it is a very fun set when it comes to the sub bass. Now, usually when you go with this subwoofer like kind of tuning, the low end does feel scooped out and it can affect the vocals potentially. But with the EP5, I think SIMGOT did something very smart here. They kind of boosted the lower mids, like the mid bass around 300-400 hertz. It gives it that extra no weight to the vocals, and you get that subwoofer feeling, but you don't get the thinness and scooped out feeling when it comes to vocals. Vocal timbre is still good. It's slightly huskier than normal, I would say, because of that bump somewhere in the 300 to 500 hertz range. Female vocals sound, they sound normal. They don't sound super angelic, sweet, or sparkly, but they don't sound overly husky, congested. And same with the male vocals. The male vocals sound really good actually. It has the power, has the no weight, but it doesn't get over congested and too nasally or just like unnatural sounding when it comes to the vocals. Now, the only downside to the slight scoop is that sometimes when it comes to the drums, the mid bass, like the string pulls, in certain songs, it can feel a little bit out of place because there is a slight scoop when you're trying to go up an octave or something like that. And it does feel a little bit, it doesn't feel completely harmonious when it comes to the mid bass because of that scoop. But aside from that, like, it's an all-rounder. It works well for pretty much every genre. At mid volume, this doesn't scale too well, unfortunately, but at mid volume, this is a good bassy all-rounder set. And when it comes to treble extension, I would say it does a pretty decent job. It's not super airy, it's not like super smooth or sparkly or like very detailed when it comes to the micro nuances, but it's extended. It gets the job done. It is a closed back, so it's not going to feel like overly spacious when it comes to the staging versus something like the ELLIPSE, the FT1, or like open back designs. But the upside to the closed back design is that when it comes to just sub bass, low end, you get more impact, you get more authority, more no weight, and you can wear these outside because it's closed back, it's not going to leak out. However, I do have a slight nitpick when it comes to the treble. I feel like it's a little bit metallic sometimes. When I listen to Model, for example, these cymbals can feel a little bit like metallic-y, not the most natural when it comes to the treble, like smoothness, extension. For example, the ELLIPSE XL is around, you can get it for under $100 on sale, and it's so much smoother than the EP5 when it comes to just the treble refinement. So that's one part I would watch out for. It's just that I would say this is more of a contrasty, dynamic, more fun and engaging kind of listen, and this is definitely not neutral by any means. There's a good amount of sub bass in these. I wouldn't say these are bass head, but they are definitely a bassy kind of sound with the subwoofer kind of presentation, as well as with a slight warmness, not warmness, but slight huskiness to the vocals that works very well for male vocals. When it comes to technical performance, I think these are okay. These are decent for the price. I would say they are competitive, but you can definitely get better, more resolving, more detailed kind of headphones. The Hi-Fi Man HE400SE, I believe, a long name, FIIO FT1s, the ELLIPSE, all of those will sound slightly more detailed. They have less bass. It just emphasizes the upper mids and the treble more. The separation is slightly better on those as well. But this doesn't mean this is horrible in the tech department. It still does its job. I would say this is a pass for the price. You're mainly buying this if you want that subwoofer kind of feeling, as well as if you need an all-rounder like a closed back and you want something that's more engaging and contrasty versus something that's neutral and something that's more bright leaning. Which leads us to the value proposition. So let's talk about the build first. The build is very nicely built for around 50 to 85 depending on where you get it. The ear cups are very comfy, they're very soft. I don't know if you can tell. It fits very nice, it's very light, it's comfy, and the overall design is clean, minimalistic. The build quality is good. I wouldn't say it's super sturdy. If I push super hard, I'm probably gonna break it, but for the price, it's a very decently nice, well built. The main issue, I guess, is that there are a lot of good IEMs at around $100 that kind of makes this harder to justify. unless you really like the headphone, form factor, maybe IEMs just don't fit your ears very well, then this would be a good pick. The design is nice, the sound is good, and overall for the price, it's a solid option, right? But when you look at some IEMs, for example, the EM6L, the treble is just so much more refined, so much smoother on the EM6L. There's more detail when it comes to like cymbal crashes, the air, there is better separation. The bass isn't as good as the EP5 because this is using a 50mm dynamic driver, so the driver is just much bigger. It makes a pretty big difference. Low end aside, when it comes to detail, technical performance, treble refinement, EM6L would be the better pick, and even the EW300 would probably be the better pick if you want stuff like the treble. And then when it comes to scaling, this is a mid-volume set. The Explorer, the Chinos, those just scale a lot better. They're also around $100. The treble is a little bit more refined, less peaky than the EP5. Like this is, I'm not saying this like super jaggedy and sharp like KZ, but this is obviously this is not the smoothest kind of sound. It is more dynamic and contrasty. And if you step up a little bit more at around $150, you got the Super Mix 4, you got the Nova, you got a lot of just like other IEMs at that price point. So mainly you're buying the EP5 for the sub bass, the comfort, and the headphone closed back design. IEMs aside, if you're looking for headphones, the HiFiMan HE400SE is gonna be more neutral if you want something that's cleaner, better treble extension, like a little bit smoother in the treble, less contrasty, more laid back. Obviously the bass is gonna be a night and day difference when you switch between the EP5 and the HE400SE. But if you're looking for something clean and neutral, that would be the better pick. And if you want something that's like more unique, the Kiwier ELLIPSE is still probably one of my favorites at around $100. It scales good, gets slightly warmness to the sound, but you also get the airiness, the extension to the treble. It's like a warmer version of the Odyssey in like headphone form, open back headphone form. You also have the FIIO FT1, which is an all-rounder set. The bass isn't as impactful, bouncy, and just like heavy as the EP5. That is a more traditional all-rounder, I would say, because it's tamer when it comes to the low one. It's a little bit tamer in the upper mids as well. It's, I guess, more like laid back version of the EP5s. The low end on the FT1 is more of a glide into the mid-range, where this is has that like slight scoop, gives it that subwoofer kind of sound, and this is more dynamic and fun, more like kind of like in your face kind of sound versus the FT1, which is a more laid back all-rounder kind of sound. I'll probably do a headphone tier list later, but as for now, those three and this is probably like one of the best, most popular $100 headphones right now, and the EP5 does stack up pretty well against them. It's a good side grade if you want a subwoofer kind of like bassy sound, and especially if you can get it for $50 on AliExpress or Taobao, then obviously go for it. It's a no-brainer at $50. And at $85, I would say it's still a pretty good choice. Like if you don't have something that's subwoofer and very bassy, dynamic, and contrasty, I would say go for it. I would recommend it. But if you're looking for just something of a different sound, like something more neutral, then maybe try something else. Stock tuning aside, SIMGOT also has a DSP mic DAC kind of thing. It does have some EQ settings on here that you can play around with. This is pretty cheap, around like 15-20 bucks. Like it's not gonna cost you an arm and a leg, and you can get a mic with this as well, like a separate attach on mic. The DAC works pretty well. There isn't any hissing sound. When you switch between the modes, there is a slight delay. It is what it is. It's not like a deal breaker, but it's there, just a heads up. And as for the modes, so when you click the M, you have three options. You have the blue option, the blue light option, which boosts the vocals a little bit more. The vocals are a little bit more forward. And then for the green mode, it does make the treble and the upper mids more emphasized. I don't know if they do this by decreasing the bass or boosting the the higher frequencies. And then lastly, the light blue version makes the sub bass, the low end, more like emphasized. It feels a little bit more bouncier. It feels more prominent. They also have this 7.1 button near the end. This I don't really recommend it for gaming or listening to music. It basically just boosts the bass and then it decreases the upper mids, so you get a lot of bass. The vocals are like pushed back, a little bit buried, I would say. The treble is also a little bit darker. I think the 7.1 might work pretty well for when it comes to like movies, because you want that kind of like shaking sound when it comes to the explosions and stuff. But when it comes to gaming, The stock tuning is fine for gaming in my opinion. The 7.1 is for movies. So in conclusion, if you're looking for a headphone, you don't like the IEM form factor for whatever reasons, it doesn't fit you well, the headphones just fit you better, and you want something that is close back you can take on the go, then the EP5 is a pretty solid option. But if you don't mind getting an IEM, you want something that's more detailed, more technical, you know, smoother in the treble, better treble extension, then IEMs would still be the better bang for your buck at around $100. Anyhow, I hope this review was helpful. Still a very solid release from SIMGOT. The pads, again, are very comfy on these headphones. Just comes down to what you're looking for, right? But aside from that, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see everyone in the next one. Shout out to Dom Q, Rorix Cat, Mystic Spoon Attack, B Urac, Discal Scaldus, Walker Standard, Patrick, User, Mr. Gorillas, Polly J, Anton Risto, Gising Yon, Christopher Jackson, Name, Henry Claudia, Son of a Horse, Obi, Wizard, Frickalicious, Tapis R, Contain Guava Juice Gains, Trent Lay, Forever New, Chuckle Norris 420, FKSRG, Treble Extended, 777ZK, Cousin Fat, Torque Cog, Ken, Zane, Early Bird, Oh Really, and Giorgio's. Thank you guys so much.